You'd think it's impossible to top a sports anime that starts with a kid putting together a team of amateurs to try and become the best football team in the country, and ends with that same kid summoning the devil to stop a nuke that was kicked at him by a god. And yet, I'd argue the second season of Inazuma 11 isn't just a little bit better, it completely blows the first season out of the water. Why? Aliens. I'm not even joking. In fact, it literally starts with the aliens blowing up their school and then challenging them to a football match to determine the fate of the world. And it gets even crazier than that as we see some of the best games in the entire series. So let's talk about the first 5 games, and for that we've got to start with Raimon winning the football frontier and becoming the best team in the world. And the reason I bring this up first is because they've literally just played a game against a group of gods. And yeah, I know they weren't actually gods, just kids on drugs, but still, they deserve to get a win before the aliens arrive. Except look at how ass this meaty little trophy is. These kids are officially the best team in all of Japan, and their reward is a trophy the size of KSI's forehead. But in fairness, with everything they've been through and everything they're about to go through, it's nice to have fun moments like these to break up the action, because we're dead ass about to see 5 football matches across the next 8 episodes. But before we get to that, it's important to note that Goenji first visits his sister in hospital, who is... holy shit, she's finally awake. Now, I don't want to be that guy, but if I was Goenji, I'm naturally going to be pretty happy that my sister finally woke up from a coma after a deranged psycho tried to kill her so I wouldn't play in a middle school football match. But couldn't she have woken up like 1 hour earlier? Because then she'd get to see him link up with 3 other players as they use their most powerful move to summon a literal phoenix before he combines it with his fire tornado to win the football frontier. That was genuinely one of the most badass moments of season 1, and she missed it because what? Because she was in a coma? Okay, yeah, you know what? That's fair enough. But there are 2 reasons I wanted to point this scene out before getting to the first Alias game. You'll understand the second later, but the first is pretty much to say that Goenji isn't with Raimon right now, and neither are Ichinose or Damon, who are off celebrating with their friends from the US. But that's fine because it's not like anything bad's going to happen. Now, the aliens have already demolished Raimon's entire school, but why have they done that? Well, before we finally see them play Raimon, let me try and explain the bullshit that you're about to hear. Alias Academy basically want to assess the planet's strength through the method the world uses to judge who is strongest. And what is that method? Football. And you know what? I just watched my team pipe our rivals to go clear at the top of the Premier League, so I'm with Turniphead on this one. Football is war. But why the hell do these aliens know how to play football anyway? Like, dog, I don't care who you are, it takes months, if not years, to learn how to do kick-ups so effortlessly. But I know you guys don't care about logic, because if you did, you wouldn't watch this show, because there's no logic in a kid being able to pick up another kid and use him as a baseball bat as a legitimate football technique. Or at least, that's probably what you're thinking right now. And I'm here to tell you that this season is actually filled with a lot of actual football tactics, and it's all thanks to a character that we meet in a few minutes. But before we get to that, it's time for Raimon to play Alias. Wait, where did they go? Okay, so it turns out Alias don't want to play Raimon because, well, they already destroyed their school, so what's the point? But Raimon tracked them down at another school that's about to be destroyed and take their place. And the stakes could not be more clear. If they beat Gemini Storm, Alias leave. And yes, that's their name and it's cool as shit. But more importantly, if they lose, this poor school will get eviscerated. So with that out of the way, let's get this started with the first match of season 2, where Alias do that typical anime trope where they don't move. Except this time it actually works, as Turniphead stops Dragon Crash by literally intercepting it as if it was a pass. And not only does he intercept it, he straight up returns it with a volley that's so fast that Endo doesn't even have time to use Margin in the hand. But maybe that's a good thing. After all, if Endo is able to improve his speed, Raimon might actually stand a chance here. But I need you guys to do something for me. Close your eyes and, no, not like that, you filthy slut. I mean, close your eyes and imagine the biggest anime Giga Chad possible. You know, someone like Gilgamesh from Fate, Ushijima from Haikyuu, or Ryuga from Beyblade. Now, in the first season of Inazuma 11, that character was Aphrodite. But in this season, it's easily Turniphead because he has some of the coldest bars I've ever heard. If someone said that to me, I'd forget about saving shots and start throwing hands. And that's exactly what Raimon do. Okay, maybe I remembered that wrong. But you know what? It's fine, because our boy has finally arrived.
We're about to take them to the chocolate factory.
You know shit's about to get serious when the animators go crazy just showing him taking off his jacket. But I'll allow it because this kid is basically the reincarnation of LeBron. He's easily the best striker in the show, and with him on the pitch, Raimon are able to link their 3 strongest players together and use their most powerful move, the Inazuma Break. Oh no. Well, there's still a bunch of other moves they can use to hopefully try and... Well, at least it can't get any worse.
必殺技といってもこの程度
This guy is like the king of shit talk, and it's even worse that he can back it up. But his words actually make Raimon try even harder, as every single player is motivated to give it their all and come together to get absolutely destroyed. And you might be wondering, okay, it's 20-0 and the match is over. So at least now it actually can't get any worse.
地球にはこんな言葉がある。記事も泣かずば打たれまい。
And then he destroys a school. And on that note, on this occasion, I will not question how a kid can be this powerful because he is a literal alien. But Endo deadass faced shot after shot and is, well, I was gonna say he's fine, but a more accurate term would be he's alive. But even then, how the hell is he alive after facing those shots? But more importantly, Raimon played this game without Domon and Ichinose. So maybe if they have them back, they'll stand a chance against Gemini Storm when they play them again. And besides, they've already destroyed every school in Tokyo. So there is now literally not a single way things could get any worse. And then they kidnap the president. Now you might think this comes out of nowhere, but it leads to us meeting a very important character and another match. But before we meet her, I'm going to introduce you to yet another character that might be one of the most important characters of the season. And she could genuinely rival Natsumi for the title of the best female character in Inazuma 11. May I introduce to you the new coach of Raimon Football Club, Kira Hitomiko, aka Lina Schiller. And you might be asking, Maka, why do Raimon even need a new coach? I don't know. Apparently he needs to leave or do something. And you know what? I don't give a shit, because across the next 4 games, you're going to see why Kira is the GOAT. Think of her as a female Jose Mourinho. And if you don't know what that means, you'll find out soon enough. So let's move on to our next major character, and we have to start with Raimon trying to get into Deer Park to see if the aliens left any clues behind when kidnapping the president. Now, I don't know why we've got literal children investigating the disappearance of the president of Japan, but they managed to make it past security thanks to Natsumi's connections and come across this ball. And you might think this is a pretty good clue, except they run into the Secret Service who mistake them for aliens. And I'ma be honest, this is dumb as hell. These kids were all over the news for winning the biggest sports tournament in the country, and they are quite clearly human and are wearing their team uniform. How can you possibly think they're aliens? And then the president's daughter shows up and wants to have a match against the aliens to get her father back. And I just want to see if you notice something in this scene, but I'm not going to tell you what it is yet until after the match against the Secret Service. And honestly, even though they're not playing Alias, this might be my favorite match out of all 5 because we get to see some super cool stuff happen in it. And it starts with the team actually discussing real tactics. They talk about how they're playing adults for the first time, so they'll need to pace themselves to keep up with their stamina, and they'll also need to rework their formation because they've only got 10 players left, with the rest being injured. But I'ma be real, I don't think that matters, because what the hell are these moves? This guy attacks Goenji with literal computer files or something, and these two are doing a synchronized dance. And the cherry on top is a special move that I think is even dumber than utter gutsiness back. Why is he shooting the ball with his ass? Luckily, Endo is still the GOAT and easily stops the shot, even managing to impress Kira. In fact, he does a lot of amazing stuff in these next few episodes that I'll talk about later, because we've just hit the 45-minute mark and it's half time. And that's when Kira finally decides to take charge and benches 3 players. Now you might be wondering who comes on for them, considering they're already a player down and don't have anyone on the bench. And no, it's not the girls. But fun fact, in the games they are actually playable characters. But in the show, nobody comes on at all, and Raimon play with just 7 players. And you might think this is a really stupid move by the coach, but you'll find out her reasoning behind it in a little bit. Besides, it's clearly not even a problem, because Kiddo puts the team on his back like Mo Salah this entire season. And there's actually a reason he's playing so well, and it's because he's able to move freely, because Somioka, Kazamaru and Kabiyama were all hiding their injuries and it was affecting their performance. And you know who noticed that? That's right, my GOAT. And then we get the most epic moment of the entire episode as we finally get to see Endo use his most powerful move. And I love everything about this because the music is just 10 out of 10. In fact, since this is a new season, we get a new opening. And opening 2 is genuinely everyone's favorite. But it's also really heavily copyrighted, so I can't play it for too long. But that's okay, because we get to see Kira in awe of Endo's ability, and you can literally see the hope and excitement on everyone's faces. And I think most people don't appreciate how important the little stuff like this is in the show. You see, Endo hasn't been able to use his most powerful move against Alias because he's not quick enough. So his team finally seeing this move serves as a reminder that their captain is strong enough to protect their goal, because he's used it before to stop a literal nuke. But I'm also going to take this moment to apologize to you guys, because I need to be that guy again for a second and ask what the hell was the need to use this move. First of all, do you know how expensive this shit is in the game? He could have easily stopped this stupid shot with God Hand. Hell, even Fireball Knuckle would have been enough. But I won't keep hating because we soon get to see Ichinose hit the Secret Service with the nastiest shoulder drop since Messi against Bayern Munich, and he passes to Kiddo, who uses his iconic illusion ball for the first time before Goenji scores the winner with Fire Tornado. And it's after this match that Toko reveals she knew they were Raimon all along. She just wanted to see their strength for herself to find out if they would be able to beat the aliens. And this is where I want to bring it back to this brilliant piece of animation where we can see the realization dawning on her face in real time. And it just goes to show that while Inazuma 11 didn't have the budget on par with Haikyuu or Blue Lock, it uses its best animation in the most meaningful and subtle of ways. And it only gets better when they have their rematch against Gemini Storm in a little bit. In fact, Toko actually joins Raimon as their 11th member because Alias have just sent out a live broadcast to the entire country, so the team traveled to the broadcasting studio for a rematch. But before we see whether or not they're able to beat Gemini Storm, if you want more Inazuma 11 content, feel free to check out my Patreon because I am so broke. But clearly this random ass broadcasting studio is anything but broke because they have a whole ass 11-a-side football pitch on their roof. In what world is this necessary? You know what? I'm done questioning the logic of this show. Let's just get the match started where Alias steal the ball straight away and unleash a shot that's once again too fast for Endo to be able to stop with Margin the hand. So instead he uses God Hand and that goes about as well as you'd expect. You know, if Triangle Z can break it, then obviously a shot from a literal alien that can destroy an entire school with a single kick can also break it. But the thing is, this time around, even though Raimon conceded, they're all still pretty positive and Kazamaru motivates the entire team to give it their all. And I love how positive this guy is. I sure hope nothing changes that. His enthusiasm spreads through the team and they're all more motivated than ever to give it their all and... Alright, I know this looks pretty doom and gloom, but it's not all that bad because Kiddo seems to realize something and wins the ball back before sending it to Goenji, who misses? Dog, I just watched my team striker miss an open goal that left me on my knees crying and questioning my life. I don't need this right now. Luckily, Kiddo's worked out Gemini Storm's attack patterns and manages to steal the ball again, and I'm gonna be honest, this season's kinda cooking by going a bit more in-depth into football tactics, and holy shit, did the ball just grow wings? Seriously, what's with this guy today? I can't remember a single instance in season 1 where he ever missed the target. It's almost like there's something on his mind. Oh, that makes sense. This guy is so good that not only did they try and kill his sister in season 1, but they're threatening to do that again in season 2. But even without that, you'd think Raimon would be okay, right? Because they've just figured out Gemini Storm's attack patterns, so they should be able to put up a better fight, right? Well, no. You see, Kira actually tells the Raimon defense to all go up and join the attack, and that also goes just about as well as you'd think. And just to rub it in more, Turnip Head hits Endo with another quote.
急にはこんな言葉がある。井の中の蛙、大海を知らず。
And then he literally shoots a planet at him. Luckily, it's slow enough for Endo to use Margin the hand. I mean, this move literally stopped God Knows, which was the strongest shot in this. Ah, shit. Well, with that, Gemini Storm win the match with a score of, Am I reading this right?
As far as I know, that's what it says in the sub.
Well, yes, but like, are you sure it's right?
Oh my god. Yes, it's right. Just read the script like you're supposed to and don't ask questions, okay?
Gemini Storm win the match 32-0. Holy shit. Naturally, the team aren't happy with their new coach. And I mean, fair enough. They just lost the game 32-0 because of her tactics. But why did she tell them to do that? Well, Kiddo explains that it was because of her decision that the entire team didn't end up in hospital like the other Raimon players. Not only that, but Endo adds that she also did it to train him, because after facing shot after shot, he was finally starting to actually see them. And if that's not another reason for her to be in S tier, I don't know what is. And before we get to Raimon's next match, I want to point out that this is all pretty different from the game. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of the show diverges from the game, but in this particular case, in the show, Kira makes the defenders join the attack and stay there. And correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, because it's been a while since I've played Firestorm and Blizzard. I'm pretty sure she tells the attack and defense to switch positions so the attackers would stop getting injured. And on this occasion, I think the show actually did it better, because they were able to address the fact that Endo isn't fast enough to stop the shots, which is a hell of a lot more interesting than him simply not being strong enough, because we already saw that in season 1. It would just be boring if we saw that again and there was an endless power climb, because that's how you end up with DBZ style power scaling. And it's because of stuff like this that having Kira as their coach is such a brilliant addition to this season.
ゴエンジ君、あなたには チームを離れてもらいます。
Now it's pretty obvious that everyone's royally pissed that Goenji's been kicked off from the team. But what if I told you we're about to meet a striker that's even better than him? One that makes every guy and girl weak in the knees. One that is the highest rated character in the popularity polls. One that is literally known as the bear killer. Well, it turns out he's kind of a pussy. This is Fubuki Shiro, and Raimon are willing to see his skills as they set up a match with his team Hakuren. Because if he's actually as good as everyone says he is, they might actually have a chance against Gemini Storm even without Goenji. Except, well, it turns out he's actually a defender. But the only way we can find out what in the god knows is going on there is by watching the game. And yeah, everyone can point out that Fubuki is pretty underwhelming all day long because he definitely doesn't have Goenji's presence. Let me just say this now. You guys aren't ready for the aura you're about to see. This guy is about to put Sung Jin Woo to shame because he's got prime Van Dijk levels of aura and is genuinely the best defender we've ever seen in the show. And I really like the direction they went with this because we've seen great forwards and midfielders, and our team has the greatest keeper, but we've yet to see a truly world-class defender, and Fubuki is him because he stops Dragon Crash without even breaking a sweat. And then, my children, we finally get to see him attack. And oh my god, this kid destroys the entire team single-handedly before we get to see a move that people say is even better than God knows. I'm gonna be honest, most people think there's only one move that's colder than this, but you won't see that until Season 3. So if you want me to cover Season 3 as well, let me know by subscribing. I'm trying to hit 100k subs by the end of the year and I won't be able to do it without your help. And speaking of help, despite Toko and Kabiyama both trying to stop Eternal Blizzard, not only does it break through, but it deadass freezes God Hand before shattering it into tiny little pieces. And I don't want to be the one to say this, so I won't.
What? Me? No, I'm not doing it. I said I'm not. Okay, look, as much as I love everyone's favourite fiery edgelord, we have to admit that right now, at this point in the story, Mr. Blizzard over here is twice the striker he ever was, and with his help, they might actually stand a chance against the aliens.
Good. Now I won't get any hate in the comments. And this actually brings us to the end of the match because Kira ends the game early as she's seen all that she needs to and asks Fubuki to join Raimon. And now the only question is if they're ready to face Gemini Storm one more time. Well, they're actually not because Fubuki straight up tells them that they're too slow. And as you can imagine, Raimon aren't happy with that. But Kazemaru says it's the team's job to raise their level to match him. So how do they do that? Snowboarding. No, seriously. Look, I'm not going to try and justify this trading. You know it's stupid and I know it's stupid. But it's still less stupid than training blindfolded, kicking the ball up a waterfall and turning yourself into a human being. And the team actually manages to get stronger thanks to this training. And that's really good timing because Alias's next target are Hakuren, so we're just a few minutes away from their final showdown. But it's still not enough for Kazemaru, and he has a conversation with Endo where he says he wishes he could take God's Aqua, the drug Zeus used to become so powerful. And I kinda see his point considering the fate of the world is in their hands, but Endo stops that conversation right then and there. Good. Now we don't need to worry about anything bad happening in the future, right? And on the topic of Endo, before we get into the Gemini Storm game, it's important to talk about how amazing he's been throughout this entire season. I didn't think he could be better than he was in Season 1, but the show does a brilliant job of elevating his character in the most subtle of ways. And we can see this from the very start of the season because he's actually the one that tells Goenji to go and see his sister because she'll want to hear about his victory. Not only that, but the entire season is filled with the most amazingly written scenes. For example, when he's trying to cheer his friends up in the hospital, he's forcing a smile on his face while literally shaking himself. And the only one that notices is Aki, which is just the cherry on top since she's one of his closest friends. And then there's the fact that he helped Somiyoko come to terms with Goenji leaving and had a heart-to-heart with Domon too. But the biggest and most important thing I want to point out is that despite Toko saying she wants to stay and fight with Raimon, he still makes sure she's able to stop by and check in on her father first before they continued on their journey. And he does all of this without even telling anyone or expecting anything in return, because that's what a captain does. And we see this having already rubbed off on the rest of the team. In Season 1, Goenji didn't want anything to do with the team, but now he's actually enjoying celebrating with them. And he's not the only one, because Natsumi was the very girl that wanted the football club disbanded, and the last thing she'd ever do was get her hands dirty. But when the club room is destroyed, she's the one crouching down to clean off their sign. And another girl he's had a huge effect on is Toko, who constantly wants to spend more time with him, not because she has feelings towards him, but because he's simply the kind of guy everyone can't help but be drawn to. But Endo's biggest impact is definitely on Domon. He started off as a spy with the goal of betraying Raimon, but Endo gave him someone he can run beside, and now nobody embodies the Raimon spirit better than he does.
本当にそれで良かったのか？どんな状況でも全力で戦う。それが俺たちのサッカーだろ。
The only question is if all of this will be enough to help Raimon finally beat Gemini Storm. And the entire country is tuning in to watch this group of middle schoolers fight aliens in a football match that determines the fate of the world. And I can't believe I just said that sentence. But this match is hype as hell. So let's take a look at the teams. As you may have noticed, Fubuki is playing in defense, and if you're wondering why that is, Ichinose actually asks Kira that very question. And do you know what she says?
意見は聞いてないわ。
I'll be honest, I low-key hated her when I first watched the show as a kid, but kind of love her now. But it's not like anyone asked, so let's kick off the game we've all been waiting for. Raimon start the game off and end up losing the ball straight away, but this time they're actually able to keep up, and Kazemaru gets the ball to Somioka, who unleashes his Dragon Crash, which actually forces the keeper to use a special move for the first time. And let's be honest, that really shows how far Raimon have come, because it means that his Dragon Crash now is vastly more powerful than the Inazuma Break was the first time they played Gemini Storm, which is insane to think about. Luckily, even though Raimon aren't able to score, Fubuki locks down the defense like Prime Maldini. This kid single-handedly stops every single one of Alias's attacks with ease. This forces Alias to switch their tactics, and they manage to get off one of their most powerful shots, which breaks through both the tower and the wall. But you know what? That's fine, because they've slowed it down enough that Endo has plenty of time to use Margin in the hand. Just once in this show do I want to see a goalkeeper use the appropriate level of skill to stop a shot. This kid uses his most powerful move to stop one of the weakest shots we've seen. And now when he's facing the most powerful shot he's ever come across, he uses one of his weakest moves. Make it make sense. And this brings us to halftime, when Raimon are a goal down and Kira finally tells Fubuki to play in attack. But why did she make him play in defense in the first place? Bro, deadass, this logic is actually really good. Raimon have trained to become faster, but it still takes time to actually grow accustomed to their speed and playing style. So by playing the first half with Fubuki in defense, he was able to limit the amount of goals they conceded while the rest of the team acclimated to Gemini Storm's speed. And now they have a much better understanding of their opponent going into the second half. And don't lie, you didn't expect this show to actually make sense for once, did you? Well, don't get used to it, because this is still the same show where we have football playing aliens using gravity powers to stop a middle schooler from scoring a goal. In fact, Gemini Storm are doing all they can to stop Fubuki, and Raimon are struggling to adapt to their changes in tactics until Ichinose notices something and we get to see his new move. Yep, she was pointing in the direction of her passes by licking her lips. See, I told you not to get used to the logic in this show. It only messes with your head. But you know what? Screw logic, because now Raimon are back in the game and we get to see Somioka's brand new special move. Naturally, the aliens aren't happy that they actually conceded, which means they unleash their most powerful special move on Endo. And now I know what you're thinking. Margin the Hand got absolutely destroyed by Astro Break, so even if Endo got stronger, he shouldn't be able to stop it. But you know what? You forgot one thing. This kid has the power of friendship on his side. Look, I'll be honest. As much as I don't like seeing this kind of bullshit, I have to admit, that was cold as hell. And Endo does what he always does after stopping an impossible shot and sends the ball long, and Fubuki uses his Eternal Blizzard. And I'm sorry, but this move is just so damn sick, because scoring isn't even enough. He freezes the entire goal as Raimon actually take the win against Gemini Storm. But it only gets better because Natsumi hits Janice with one of the coldest lines in the series.
地球にはこんな言葉があるわ。3度目の正直。
And I won't lie, that was so damn satisfying. And funnily enough, in the game, it's actually Fubuki that says this, but I actually think it makes more sense for Natsumi to be the one to say it here. Unfortunately, things aren't even close to over yet, because it turns out that Alias have a team even stronger than Gemini Storm. And they must be on an entirely different level, because just look at their faces. Look at this guy's face. And they've got a right to be scared, because Desarm straight up eviscerates them. So that brings us to our next opponents, which ends in one of the most intense rivalries in the whole series between Fubuki and Desarm. And the writing throughout these games is genuinely beyond anything else the show has delivered thus far. But do you know what's even better than fighting aliens? Fighting the gods themselves. And as amazing as Season 2 has been so far, there's one game that blows all of these out of the water. So if you want to watch the greatest match in sports anime, click the video on the left. Thanks for watching.